I'll just take a few minutes. Thanks, Gerald. So I'm going to just get us started, and I'm going to spend a few minutes just giving a little intro about Delaware IPL's work, and hopefully by that time other people can join. My name is Shweta Arya, and I'm the Executive Director of Delaware Interfaith Power and Light. I use she, her pronouns, and I'd like to welcome you all to our climate conversation tonight. I see a lot of familiar faces, but some of them I don't recognize. I welcome you all. We're very thankful that we see a lot of returning faces. So I will just start with a little background about Delaware IPL. Delaware IPL, we are a faith-based environmental nonprofit, 501c3. We were established a decade ago, working on climate change and climate justice, and really talking about climate change as a moral issue that, we are in a climate emergency, and to really protect the most vulnerable communities among us, we really need to act and act now. How Delaware IPL works is we help our faith communities through our programs, funding, and tools to reduce their own carbon emissions. And then and you can read about those programs on our website. And we work on climate education. Climate conversation is part of our climate education initiative. No reform is possible without education. And through climate conversations like these, we are trying to change the narrative from gloom and doom about climate change to one that is filled with hope and action and what we can do about it. We really know that climate change is created by us humans, and we have the power to change things around us. So we talk about it. We bring different speakers. We have done over 50 climate conversations now. So we also invite any organizations, any communities who want to host similar conversations. Please let us know. We organize speakers and do a conversation. We need to talk about climate change, And then lastly, we work on climate policy. This particular climate conversation is very important because we always kind of focus on state level policy, but cities are key to climate action, and we'll talk a little bit about that. Before I move forward, I do want to acknowledge that we are very, very thankful for Energize Delaware, who is our funder for Climate Conversation Program. Energize Delaware is a nonprofit itself created by the state. You can check them out at www.energizedelaware.org. They provide resources to businesses, residences, and nonprofits, help them make them energy efficient and climate resilient. We are very thankful for their financial support to provide this program. So I never actually got to share my screen. Maybe try now. Well, I don't have much on that screen, so I'll go. Today is climate conversation. I am really, really personally very excited about. We have not done any climate conversation before on this particular theme. How cities can really take action. Last legislative session, we were rooting for a climate change legislation for state of Delaware, really wanting Delaware to set targets, to get to that net zero by 2050, that President Biden is also rooting for. But today we'll talk about how cities can be really key to climate action, particularly about city of Wilmington. I was really, really glad to see the Resilient Wilmington study that was published just this summer. And, that was my late night study for last couple of days to go through that study. And I was just telling Alison that, I was really kind of horrified by some of the findings of how grave it was looking for Wilmington. But this study is the great first step. And I now, without any further ado, would like to invite our guest today, Allison Quimby, who is the Sustainable Compliance Manager at Wilmington Department of Public Works. I might have gotten your title wrong.
It's okay. I mess it up all the time, and I created it. Seriously, when I write it, sometimes I think, why did I make it so long? I might have to redo it. It's hard to remember. It's close enough. Thank you so much for introducing me.
Yes, but floor is all yours, and so please go ahead, and we are all ears for you, Allison.
Okay, all right, guys. I'm gonna do a little intro of myself, and then I'll do the presentation, because I always feel like it's more interesting to kind of get to know the person that's presenting. So I'm Allison Quimby. I worked for the city for 14 years. I know that's hard to believe because I look so young, but it's true. I have done lots of interesting stuff in the environmental field. I worked for DNREC for a number of years. I have tromps through the oceans and lakes and ponds, and I've worked in labs. I worked in the drinking water lab for the city for about 7 years, and I've been in this new position for about 8 years. So if you have any interest or questions in regards to your drinking water, I also, after this, you can always reach out to me. I have 7 years of knowledge that I cannot get rid of, that I love to share about the city's drinking water. And, I just wanted to kind of engage you guys on how I got started in this field. And this is kind of my very first adventure in climate change and resiliency. So I don't know it all, but I'm always willing to learn. And if I don't know the answer, I'll say I'll get back to you, and I will. So just a little bit about me. Everything I've ever done in the environmental field is very water related, oceans and lakes and drinking water. And about 2017, I signed up to go to a climate change class in Johns Hopkins, which actually the state of Delaware brought to us now, but back then it was only in Maryland, and I couldn't wait for them to come, so I went. And Shweta, the way you felt when you read our program is how I felt when I left that class. I thought, oh my gosh, we have so much to work on. What is the city doing? And it just lit a fire in me, and I have just been going ever since. So at the same time, when I was working on this, individual programs like greenhouse gases and green infrastructure, my manager and our amazing team at Arcadis, and Devin's on here too. Hi, Devin. We're creating the Resilient Wilmington plan simultaneously. So kind of like a train, right? I'm over here, I'm doing day to day, I'm getting all the things done, and they're creating this plan. And then in about 2019, I got to review and go over it. And then I took it over, and, we presented it to the mayor, and he was the same feelings, like, oh man, we've got a lot to work on, but this is a really great start. So we can get started. So I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully I'm going to stop my video. There's my kids. Okay. Hopefully this works.
Love their hairstyles.
Yes, we do lots of fun hairstyles. So let's get in here. Sorry, I'm gonna have to maneuver through a bunch of stuff. Hopefully not. Okay, yeah, there we go. We did it. Okay, that wasn't so bad. All right, Resilient Wilmington. By the way, thank you so much for letting me present. I am so honored. This is my first time presenting this plan besides the mayor's office, and I'm really excited to get out there and to hear what everyone has to say, and just to be part of the conversation, and really to learn so much. So let's get started. All right, the agenda. We're going to go over what the plan has, and a lot of it in the beginning initially is a lot of data that we collected, and also modeling that we've done for future planning, and kind of trying to see what the outcome is moving forward, right? You guys can see what I'm looking at?
Yes.
Okay, good. All right. Oh, wait, maybe if you guys can see, then I can leave my face here. Sometimes when I present on Teams, it's really weird, but that's great. Okay. Because then I can just see my screen and it looks weird. Okay, so everybody, or maybe not everyone, is familiar with this beautiful park down by the Brandywine River. I walk it every day that I can. I love it. It is my favorite. And this picture on the left is a picture of the city of Wilmington's raceway. I think Wilmington might be the only surface water municipality for drinking water. So that means we actually get our drinking water from the Brandywine. So this raceway is a conveyance to get the raw drinking water over to our Brandywine membrane plant, which is fantastic and amazing, and I love it. So the left side, regular day, living our best life. On the right, not so great, right? And I don't even think this is Ida. I think Ida was way worse. But you know, what is our plan standing for? What did we try to accomplish in this first phase? And the first phase was, you know, acknowledging what's currently happening right now, the issues that we're already having, and what we might be having in the future. Right. Hopefully it worked. Next. My computer was being really slow earlier. I'm gonna have to do this. There you go. Okay. All right. How is climate change impacting Wilmington? All right. So temperatures are getting hotter. And during our study, we were able to identify that in our area, it will go up to, and it will increase to 1.5 to 2.5 degrees projected by 2039. So you think about it, and especially since I'm not like years and years into this resiliency, you don't always think like, oh, geez, that's so much, but it really is. And, you know, having an increase in temperatures, especially in a city, is a big deal. The city just had a really amazing conversation with the University of Delaware. And I'm going to kind of bebop back and forth what we're doing and what we actually we're identifying so that doesn't feel so doom and gloomy, because that is the worst. So yes, the heat island effect, it's a thing. We know it's happening. But I don't think the city has tons of data on it. So one of our next steps is actually to start a study that's going to happen in the summer of 2023 with the state of Delaware, DNREC, and also University of Delaware, and some other partners, so that we can actually get some real life data and make some actual life changes to improve these issues. Something like increasing the tree canopy, or introducing more green infrastructure, things like that we can do that can help lower the heat index and also protect our citizens. And it later on in the presentation, I actually have a slide where we did have some like some graphics to show where it is the hottest. And, you know, so we're aware, but this is the next step that we'll be taking to help make it a little bit easier. Sea level rise. One of the things that I never really thought about until I started doing this green infrastructure master plan is Wilmington is a river city. And I just love that. I remember reading it and thinking like, oh, I love that, a river city. Like you wouldn't think it when you walk down Market or 4th Street, but like we're so lucky. We're surrounded by the Brandywine, the Christina, the Delaware. You know, we have all of these avenues that we can enjoy. And, you know, sometimes it's not always for the best. You know, look at the picture from the last slide. There are side effects, and tidal flooding is something that the city has always dealt with. When I presented to the mayor, that was the one thing he and I like high-fived on. He was like, nobody gets it. Nobody gets it. We have tidal flooding. I was saying to him, like, we have a program, and like he's talking about like Newcastle County, because they don't have tide gates. And I was saying to him, like, yeah, we had to find a specialist to be able to help us fix tide gates, because if our tide gates aren't working, then it's going to flood even on a sunny day, which is something that you don't always think about when you think about Wilmington, unless it's affecting you every day, or if you're doing it for a job, which is what I do. So we're looking at sea level rise and 1.7 feet to 5 feet. And if you're familiar with Wilmington, that's a lot. There's not a lot of wiggle room in a lot of areas where our water bodies are connecting to our land. And then also this changing precipitation. You know,
yeah, it's concentrated.
I've lived here my entire life.
We're gonna have potatoes in
Hi, can I please ask everybody to mute themselves?
I'm good.
Oh my God.
Let
I'll
me
have
see.
some
I'm sorry about
potatoes.
that.
Okay. I haven't eaten dinner yet. I'll have potatoes too, thanks. So, but you know, one of the things that I've lived in Wilmington my whole life, my whole family's lived here forever, right? And I've never seen a tornado come through the city. And in the last 2 years, we've had 2. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, I remember we had an earthquake once, but it was very minor. But like tornadoes and Ida and all these storms are just becoming more and more, you know, relevant. And this flooding issue is just obviously not going away. So. Okay. So let me get to my notes. I'm going off the cuff. It's getting crazy. 5, 3. Okay. All right. So how did we write Resilient Wilmington? And I wasn't there for that. I was busy doing the day-to-day stuff. But Devin and my manager, Brian Lennon, who's fantastic, worked together to create a robust stakeholders group that would be able to guide and give us all of the information that we could ever want when we're putting this plan together. Like if I built this plan, it would be so specific and it would only be in my brain and what I thought. So we really looked to engage on all the different departments. We worked with DENREC, we worked with WilMAPCO, a bunch of different departments within the city of Wilmington, public health, the Nature Conservancy, emergency planning, the Riverfront Corporation, the University of Delaware. And that's just the beginning. You know, they worked hard to make sure that if we were going to make a plan, it would encompass all the things that we could think about now, and then also in the future. Plus, of course, and Arcadis, who helped us write the plan as well. So, you know, what are we recommending, and how can we help change these issues? So we know it's already flooding, right? And we know that the city is hot. The mayor does that free fan program, which is, you know, a great help, but we need to do more than just fans. We need to help resolve the issue of the excessive heat and stuff like that. So we developed recommendations to mitigate and prepare for the effects of climate change. But while we also were very realistic, like we're not going to shoot for the moon and, you know, tell the mayor who like built the riverfront, we're not building anymore, you know? I mean, like that would be like me, and everyone lives in a grass hut and blah, 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 but that doesn't work. So we had to be realistic, and we had to really just try to incorporate what a city would need, and also what our constituents really need, so that we can make sure that people can stay in their homes forever. I don't want any of my aunts or uncles or cousins who live in the city to have to leave because their house keeps getting ruined by flooding. So we wanted to integrate climate resiliency into relevant planning and capital spending within the city. So a lot of our projects were applying for grants because we're not rich, and the state wants to help us out because they know we have the troubles too. So we are working to apply for grants, and I'll go into a little bit more detail in regards to the ones that I'm referring to. But one of them is very specific to the location where Ida had severe flooding, and then also around the area of Southbridge, because they're having issues obviously very regularly. Okay. What will the future look like? Okay, all right, so we're gonna look at the slide. So, and I had to write this down because I literally can never remember this. So I'm going to read it verbatim. But okay, so the slide on the left is the daily tides, sunny conditions. So like what I was referring to, the tide gates. And if we don't have the tide gates working, you have flooding, you know, and we already have coastal, tidal flooding, and the tide comes up and down, which is beautiful, but also can be very dramatic. So the slide or the picture on the left is the daily tide, sunny conditions, and the MHHW is the mean high water, which means, okay, so I'm going to read the definition and then I'm going to make it make sense, because even when I read the definition, it doesn't make sense. I read it like 8 times and I was like, no. And then I gave myself an example and I said, okay, yes. So the mean high water is the average of the high water mark height of each tidal day observed over a national tidal time period. So that means like, okay, say you're like going down the Brandywine and you're living your best life. And there's like, you know, you look at the bridge, you can see where the highest mark for high tide is. That makes sense, unlike the definition, which is very confusing. So that's essentially the base level on a regular day, sunny, nothing's happening. And then the darker bluish, not the darkest, but the one right next to it, right below it, is 3 feet of sea level rise. And then the one behind it is 6 feet of sea level rise.
His first few years in the NFL with the Giants, then he began to cool down.
Somebody's unmuted.
Stopped in Cleveland for a while without lighting the league on fire. Then to the Rams, where he once again
Who's watching football?
Had to start with free agent ACL he tore in the Super Bowl. An injury came.
So I muted everybody. So Allison, you can just unmute yourself and talk.
Okay, great. All right, thanks. All right, can you hear me? Yeah, okay, good. All right. Okay,
Yeah.
so the picture on the left is coastal flooding in a storm condition. And so, you know, being a river city, we have floodplains all around us. We just built that wetland and it should have been there the whole time. And technically it was a wetland before we built on it. And then we just put it back how it was supposed to be. So, you know, like at the time when they built Wilmington, they built it because of the water, and they didn't think like, oh, we should think about separating the storm sewer or the stormwater from the sewage. You know, that wasn't a thought. So the flooding and where we built it's not ideal. But you know, these are our projections. The mean high water mark is an actual number, and then the sea level rises are projections from a model that Arcadis helped us with.
Allison, there's a question from Marge, and I want you to address it on that particular slide.
Yes. Okay, sure. Hold on. Let's go.
She's asking, where is the MHHW in the picture?
I know it's
left.
hard to, it's very, very light. Let me see if I can I see my mouse.
Yeah.
It's like here.
Oh, got it.
Yeah, it's not, we'll have to, Devin, make a note. Maybe we'll make them like light pink, orange, and green or something, because it's hard to tell.
Yeah. Well, so we could definitely change the color, but it wouldn't make too much of a difference in terms of the map, because the extent of that high tide flooding today is actually really, really limited, which is great. And it means that, you know, on a day-to-day basis under current conditions, Wilmington doesn't see very much high tide flooding or sunny day flooding like a lot of other communities up and down the East Coast, which actually works in our favor. So we save a lot kind of on transportation issues and things like that. But as you can see from that map, moving forward with climate change and sea level rise, the extent of flooding really expands really quickly.
Yes. Only if a tide gate is messed up, then you get the sunny day flooding. Unless you live in Maryland, and then you're doomed. I'm just kidding. Okay, so let's do the next slide. Okay, all right, so here we go. Temperatures will increase. Okay, this is the slide I was talking about. So we will we were able to identify, and in the picture you can see, so obviously, like I'll use my my mouse, obviously the water, closer you are to the water body, the coastal cooling effect happens, and the breeze, you know, makes everything inland much cooler. But the further you get into the city, obviously the hotter it is. And so if you look at the chart underneath, excuse me, it looks like, you know, the latest is 91. This is the max daily temperature for summertime. So you know, the like a whitish gray here, and then you can see it just gets hotter and hotter until it's very hot. So the city already has a general idea of the daily temperatures, but like what I spoke about before with the University of Delaware, it's really going to be able to help us identify factual data in addition to this, that we can help improve these issues, in addition to working with the health department and other areas that will be able to assist us, because I am not a specialist when it comes to the human body and the health in regards to heat and stuff, but that's why some of our next steps engage working with the local hospitals and other you know, health representatives to give us guidance, and you know, because they specialize in it. So, and then the slide on the right is the Earth's average temperature, and we're expecting it to increase by 5 degrees by 2100, which, by the way, guys, I did the math today, and I'll be 78. And when I have to say 2100, I'm gonna hate it every time because that sounds so weird in my head. I literally was like, what? That sounds so weird. Hopefully I make it to 78. I bet you I will. And I will think of this presentation then when the clock turns whatever and we say it, and I'm gonna say that's weird. That's weird. But anyway, so this is a nice graph that gives you kind of what we're anticipating and the temperature increasing, and kind of in relation to the heat island effect that's, you know, happening, and what we might be expecting moving forward. So so let's see the next one. So what does this mean for you? All right, so repetitive flooding, damaging the homes and businesses, leaving residents stranded without an emergency services. I know we had that with Ida already. And I can name a handful of things that happened during just rainy storms. Like one of the ones which I thought was so odd, because you don't think of this because it's the city, right? Like who has flooding in the middle of a city? But down at the bottom of Union Street, and I think it's Lancaster Avenue, maybe, there's a railroad track and it dips down. And I remember the fire department, because I have some friends in the fire department, telling me they had to like rescue people from their cars because they had flooding. And when you think about it, like when you walk through the city, most of the time you're not thinking like, wow, this is a steep incline, or you know, this is because it's a city. You're not, it's not like a mountain. You're not thinking about it in that way. You're just walking and going to lunch and doing the things. So you know, the city has a program that we're already required to do from the state to clean catch basins. And like that one flooding incident, that was because a catch basin was full. Something so small could make such a big difference. And then, you know, like with Ida, people had to get airboat rescued, which is insane. Like I can't literally imagine in my mind the homeowners that had to experience that, and the shock. Like in my mind, I've lived here my whole life. I would have never thought that that could have flooded like that. So this increased repetitive flooding, economic impacts, you know, from the rainfall, the sea level rise, the public health, all of these things are weighing heavy on our constituents. And a lot of them already have lots of other issues that they are dealing with on a daily basis. So, you know, the sewer backing up will continue to get worse. Because, and I didn't really go into this, but the city has a combined sewer. Most of it is combined, 90% of it. So that means on a regular day, sewage is in our sewer pipes and they're going to our wastewater treatment plant. But on a day that it rains, rainwater mixes in with sewage, and sometimes it rains so much that the sewage goes out, it has to escape, or else it'll come back up into the city. So that's why we have those outfalls and those tide gates and stuff like that. So you know, those things really make a big difference to our city and flooding, because stormwater doesn't have as many places to go. So that's why we created the wetland. And you know, that I don't know if it is the biggest man-made green infrastructure in the state, but I would put at least $1 on that bet that it is. So on top of creating green infrastructure, which I also oversee, you know, we're also doing sewer separations, which can help take away some of the additional flow from the sewer to help reduce any additional flooding. So also, of course, including and always adding in more trees wherever we can is our goal. Oh, I don't even think I talked about the map. I'm so sorry. Boop. Just kidding. Let's go back to the map. Okay. So the map, whoops. Oh my, go back. Just kidding. Okay. So the map shows the percentage of occupied houses with no vehicles. And I think this is so important. And this is exactly why we reached out to everybody. I am so lucky. And so is my family. We all have cars. We all have a way to get out. But like, what about people that don't? And I don't know if I would have thought of that, which is why when we engaged in our stakeholders and our you know, our team to help us put this together, we really tried to make sure that we were including everyone so that we can make sure that we're helping everyone in these times with these issues. You know, we want to make sure that we are including everyone that has cars, that doesn't, you know, all of the people. Okay. How do I make, ugh. We'll go back. Okay. What is climate mitigation? All right. What is it? Here we go. We got it. An effort to limit the speed of climate change through actions such as reducing greenhouse gases, emissions, increasing energy efficiency of older equipment, or adapting to new technologies. So when I was starting in this field, these two words were so confusing. And when I was picking that intense, really long title for myself that I always mess up, I had to choose one of these words because I wasn't sure which one I wanted it to represent. But our plan includes both of these things. So we're working on real life stuff that's happening right now. And then we're also doing climate resiliency as well. So in the effort of mitigation, one of the programs I am overseeing is the greenhouse gas summarization and then also next steps. So I'm not sure how many of you guys have been around and if you remember Mayor Baker, but he was tons of fun, one of my favorite mayors. And he set a precedent for a 20% reduction of greenhouse gases by 2020. I don't know if he picked it because it rhymed, but it stuck and we achieved it. And the city was very proud to be able to do that. In a lot of ways, some of our biggest greenhouse gas contributors are the wastewater treatment plant. It just so happens it's in the city limits and it's also owned by the city. You know, all of northern Newcastle County above the C&D Canal contribute to that, but because it's with we consider it to be you know, one of the things that we are most focused on. And one of the facilities that we were able to create and build is the REBF facility, which is the renewable energy bio facility. So and I won't get into a lot of wastewater technology, but I think that really got us to the 20% reduction because we were able to dry our biosolids and reduce the amount that we were shipping. And that's a whole bunch of science behind it, but it's a fantastic building. We're very proud of it. And that just fits right in with climate mitigation. Those kinds of projects we're looking to always update. Like we did the membrane plant, I think that was in like 2009 or 10. The city is always interested in improving technology to help our constituents and to also just be better at what we're doing. So so the city does both climate mitigation and resiliency. So and I don't know how I can see on the screen, but I can't see, I can't move. Oh my God. I did it. Okay, sorry. I haven't presented on Zoom a lot. I use a lot of Teams. Okay, so climate resiliency, what is it, right? That's what I picked. That for my title. But no, I picked sustainability, a measure of our ability to withstand and rebound as a community after a disaster. So when I think of that, I think of Ida. I think of our shoreline protection grant that we applied for, 2 different ones, one for that Brandywine River area and one for the Christina shoreline. We are looking to, we know that this is going to happen again. I mean, the storm with Ida, it barely rained here, which was another thing that really kind of blew me away. It barely rained here, but upstream, it crushed us. So we know it will happen again. We know these storms are coming. So we have applied for 2 different grants through the state of Delaware to be able to study and really implement some next best practices, like a berm or something that will be able to protect our constituents in addition to other things that, you know, we're planning. So. Okay. All right. These 4 little scenarios is what Wilmington's resiliency plan really encompasses. So waterfront development, sewer and stormwater, transportation, public health, and safety. You know, we are going to be reviewing, and a lot of this stuff is already happening, which is the exciting part about Brian creating the plan and me also in so many ways in a parallel path moving forward without even really realizing connecting. So we're going to be reviewing you know, the FEMA. We want to make sure that when we're building with our codes and stuff, that everything is up to grade. We want to make sure that if we're building on the riverfront, that we are incorporating you know, green infrastructure to help with runoff, and also make sure that we're implementing the safest practices for building and stuff, so that, you know, we're not having a South Bridge issue again. We want to make sure that our building, one of our first things is to review the building codes within the city and kind of go through and make sure that we're requiring everyone to give the best effort in regards to flooding. So, and then for transportation, I'm also involved with, I'm busy. I'm also involved with the electric vehicles. So I know that the state passed some regulation, or if it hasn't passed, I know it's getting ready to, for all of the cities in Delaware to be able to offer to their constituents the ability to install an electronic vehicle charging station. So I have been in the process of doing that with the mayor's office, and we're getting ready to put out some codes so that we can help support people. They're interested in green and getting a you know, an electric vehicle so that you can have a charging station. And it's not an easy task. I mean, we all know, if you've ever lived in a city, that a parking space is priceless. And if you shovel it out and then you stick your trash can there, even though you're not supposed to, and then someone parks there, it makes you turn red and steam comes out of your ears. So people have a lot of opinions about parking spaces. And so we really are trying to make sure that, you know, we're not taking in our residents, but that we're also allowing an opportunity for them to take the next step if they want to have an electronic vehicle, which is great. Also, the city is really working on, you know, creating better bike paths. And I know we have the one on Union Street, and I see some other ones popping up here and there, and they have the extended trail and then the bike path, that's down by the riverfront and stuff like that. But you know, moving forward, we want to be able to encourage our constituents to ride bikes into work and to feel safe, because city streets are small. Most of the time cars are parked on the one-way street on both sides, and that's a tight squeeze. So, you know, that's part of our next steps, making sure that we are engaging with these walking paths, improving the sidewalk, encouraging our constituents to get outside and, you know, really just try to make the best of what we have available in the city. So sewer and stormwater, we have the beautiful picture of the wetland. I'm not sure how many of you guys have gotten out there. It's getting ready. Here it is. Woo! It's getting ready to get the ribbon cutting. It's so beautiful. It's like walking through a secret garden. I love it. I go there on my lunch break and I really enjoy it. Creating projects like this. And on the other side, you know, there's some tree trenches. It's really one of those things that creating this green infrastructure plan that the city has been doing for about a year now. We really tried to make sure that we were incorporating a number of factors, especially, you know, lower income areas and our most vulnerable. One of the for us when we were starting to plan and create new opportunities for green infrastructure. Like right now, if the state gives us the money, we're getting ready to apply actually. We have a green infrastructure plan set to happen on Adams Street. It's a location, there's a lot of green that's not really being utilized, and it's really a location that could use beautification. And you know, I think it's a great opportunity to reduce a bunch of nutrients, which is also something we have to do.
Hey, Allison.
Mhm.
I just want to interrupt and say that we need to save some time for Q&A.
Okay. Okay, sorry. Okay, I'll move forward. Sorry.
A couple more.
Not to say. Okay, so the public health stuff, that's the heat island and stuff, you know, we talk about that. So, all right. Several Resilient Wilmington recommendations that are already in progress. And I talked a lot about these, so we don't really have to spend a lot of time on them. But we're prioritizing green infrastructure. We're working on, you know, creating this new one. We just had the wetland built. That's a really big thing to help remove stormwater from our combined sewers. I talked about the shoreline protection study where we've applied for 2 of these different grants for two different locations that we know currently are having issues, so that we can help identify and set forward our next steps that will help improve when new storms come through. We're evaluating the feasibility for flood protection. That's the same one. That's the brand new one. And then we're always looking to improve our sidewalks. It's good to be old and it's good to be an old city, but man, do we have old sidewalks. So that's one of the ones that we're encourage and really make happen. So what can you do to help? Okay. So you could ride a bike to work, you could walk, you could take public transportation, you could also advocate for zero emissions buses and stuff like that, which a lot of the DART buses are already. You can promote energy efficiency, which I know you guys are a big part of, switching to a higher efficiency building standards to reduce energy consumption. I know the city with green infrastructure or the greenhouse gases, we haven't started yet, but we have a meeting in 2 weeks to talk about what we're going to set our goals for. because now we've achieved one and now we need to set another one. We're going to advocate for nature-based solutions. Like over here on the right is a picture of Cool Springs and this beautiful park that used to flood all the time. And there's a local school right next to it. And the kids wouldn't get to play because it was so muddy. And we put in these beautiful tree trenches and we're getting ready to build an outdoor classroom. And it's just, I want to replicate this again and again throughout all of our city parks. And then we're going to support local urban agriculture and also promote access to community resources. Okay. This should be my last slide, I think. So to support our becoming more resilient, we really want to make sure that we are touching base on all of the things that we've already discussed. This is just like a reiteration, but more in words. You know, if you know a storm's coming, check the local weather, check the Del.Dot website, see if things are closed. This is the way that you can help yourself be more prepared. One of the things that I think is really important, the city has a 311 line. You can call and tell us about anything. You can call us about missing your trash pickup. You could call about graffiti. You could call about a catch basin being clogged, and we will put it into our program and we will resolve the issue, and you don't have to follow up on it. You just call us and we log it into our system and we get it taken care of. You know, and one of the things I'm interested in is doing some outreach in regards to rain gardens and planters that residents can implement on their own property so that they can help reduce stormwater through our getting into our combined system. And then of course, always check on your neighbors during any inclement weather, not just heat, but you know, the really bad storms or snow or any of that stuff. We want to make sure that if you can and you reach out, I have a bunch of great neighbors. You know, we're always checking on each other, making sure that we're all good, especially during storms, because my street actually floods. Okay, so here's the city website. It's on the actual city of Wilmington. We have a Resilient Wilmington page under Public Works. You can go there and read the plan. You can print it out. There's like a little Q&A there, and you can get my contact information there as well. And then that's it.
All right. Thank you so much, Allison. So before we take some of the questions put in the chat, and hopefully we can get to at least some of them, if you could just stop sharing that screen for a second so I can maybe just spotlight you. Perfect. And so I have some questions for you. Thank you for that great presentation, and I'm so glad that you're making your first public presentation through our Climate Conversation program. This is really great stuff. And so before we can take some of the questions that are there, we don't have too much time, but I wanted to just ask you a few things that came to mind when I was going through the study. Was you know, about, first of all, I know that there are groups like ICLEI, International Council for Local Environmental Initiative, that have been working with a lot of local governments, helping them measure and mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, set science-based targets. What does your next steps look like for your study? Will you be working with the city in terms of setting any science-based targets? I know you talked about the 20% target, but you know, you are in a community of climate activists right now. We really think about net zero, and you know, we think bold and we understand the urgency. So my question is, are you working with any groups of cities? Because I know there are a mayor's group, there are city groups that are working towards getting to those net zero goals. It does look very unachievable, but when you work with a bunch of those cities who are working on such ambitious goals, because those goals will also bring a lot of economic activity, add a lot of jobs. So are you thinking on those lines? Does the city has any plans on that?
So on the 14th, I have my first internal meeting and I am presenting to our upper management, essentially some deep details on how we achieve the 20 by 20. And then it's really the first step in us saying, hey, what do you think about this? What are your thoughts? What do you think about electric vehicles for our fleet? What do you think about, exchanging all of our light fixtures so that we can, reduce our energy usage? What else can we do at the wastewater treatment plant? So we haven't set any goals yet, but that's literally our meeting on the 14th. So yeah, we're there, but I love the idea of, once we meet, I know we're going to kind of pull our own thing, and then we're going to start engaging with other municipalities and stuff, so that we can, especially the state as well, so that we can achieve it all together, because that's the only way it's going to work.
My other, we'd love for you to, to think bold, and I know there's a lot at stake for Wilmington, and so I'd love for you to think on those lines. My next question is about environmental justice communities. We know environmental racism has plagued communities of color for decades. We know marginalized communities get disproportionately impacted by climate impacts. The most poor, most vulnerable are there in the front lines. So my question is, did the steering committee or the stakeholder groups for your study factor in environmental justice and prioritize that? And what was the approach taken by your study group?
So kind of like what I had referred to previously, I wasn't really engaged in that initial beginning, but I did share this question with Devin because she was in the mix. So I'm going to let her kind of take this, and then so she can kind of give a little bit more, because she was there. I was just on the sidelines doing my thing.
Yeah, thanks, Allison. As Allison mentioned, I'm a resilience planner here at Arcadis and helping the city with the Resilient Wilmington plan and some of the other projects that Allison mentioned earlier today. But yeah, our team surely recognizes that racial and environmental justice are truly essential aspects to any type of climate adaptation or mitigation strategy. This is certainly an area where we have a lot more work to do. And it's not just a one and done type of, community engagement effort. Moving forward, especially as the city is implementing some of the recommendations that were made in the Resilient Wilmington plan, we'll be working with communities to ensure that that implementation does address environmental justice concerns as we continue to refine and further study and eventually implement a lot of the things that are presented in the Resilient Wilmington plan. I think once you get in there, you'll see that the vast majority of the goals and the things that we're talking about there are really very high level. And so a lot of the considerations that come next need to be hashed out kind of at that next stage of engagement. So all the implementation of this project and others, including the South Wilmington Shoreline Protection Project that we're working on, are really going to focus on environmental and racial justice concerns. The city is prioritizing projects such as the South Wilmington Shoreline Protection Project, which is really focused on the neighborhood of Southbridge, which is a historically African-American and low-income community in South Wilmington, because we do recognize that that community is extremely vulnerable. And so therefore, we're trying to prioritize this study and our resources in adaptation for communities like that. There are a handful of other goals throughout the Resilient Wilmington plan that do kind of have more of a focus on equity and racial and environmental justice. that includes, safe and equitable multimodal transportation options throughout the city. And it also includes a specific focus on promoting public health within communities that may be more vulnerable due to, social, economic, or environmental factors. But really, the work is just getting started, and we're really looking forward to more opportunities to engage groups like yours and other folks to make sure that we're doing our best in incorporating those considerations into our work. So looking forward to continuing this connection.
Thank you. We'll just take maybe 2 questions. I think, so I don't want to butcher your name. Is that Simon Han?
Yeah, hi, my name is Simeon.
Simeon, sorry.
Simeon, yes.
Simeon, I know you have a couple of questions, so pick one and ask that, and then I'll I'll give other people a chance to.
Sure. I guess it has to do with the ecosystem services provided by the river and being a river community. So, some of the other features is that like the more natural aspects of the river, and its habitat features and biodiversity. This is a freshwater tidal area, so sea level rise brings salt water in, and I haven't looked at or done the analysis or anything, but I know that's a concern about saltwater moving into freshwater areas, perhaps. But so it's an important area for natural resources, and with environmental justice over the long term, communities have been cut off from the river, particularly the Delaware River, with the landfill, the water treatment plant, all kind of waste disposal facilities, and that's the same along other areas. I mean, Brandywine Park is a great access point and such. So I think, this waterfront development, the question was, with waterfront development, is that including goals of reconnecting existing communities to the water resources and maintaining the biodiversity and the natural habitat value of some of these areas? So.
Yeah, that's a great question. I can say that I've seen some of the plans for what the new riverfront, or I'm not exactly sure how we're referring to it. I do know that when they put the bridge in, the car bridge, that was to connect the community. I know that when the city built the wetland, we made sure that we connected to Southbridge so that we could encourage and give access, to the ShopRite. And then if you really wanted to, you could go all the way over to the movie theater. I know that it is in my interest to advocate for what you are, what you're saying. And I know that the mayor is also interested in being inclusive, and we don't want to, what was a past thing, we don't want to continue to keep doing it. We want to make sure that we're including everyone and all of the beautiful things that the city offers.
Thank you. And Peggy, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, we know that in the city, the heat badly affects underserved populations much more than in the posher districts, and you find a lot more trees in those posher districts. And I assume you're going to put trees in some of the poorer districts, and because it's a matter of equity. So what is your plan for trees? I think trees are kind of a bedrock of mitigation and planning for climate change.
Yeah, and I almost think of them as like an environmental band-aid, right? Like, oh man, they do so many things. The city, a few years ago, we did a study on the effects of neighborhoods and how it affected the human health. And neighborhoods that had trees, it was insane. The people had better health. They were less stressed. they were more willing and interested to sit in front of their house and to play outside. And you know, I know that the city has an urban forestry department that is highly engaged and very interested in getting a tree in every single pit and more. I know that the state, and I'm not the specialist on this, so I'm going to reference it, but I'm not, please don't quote me. But I know that there was like a policy of like every Delawarean gets a tree, right? I think there's something like that.
Yeah, Teddy.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we are ready. We want those trees. We want to put them in a lot of time. And I think it's also goes back to educational outreach. A lot of times some of those trees come down because constituents consider them to be a burden, and they may not understand the positive effects that they may have. But that's on the city to encourage and also advocate for the importance of trees to help us reduce and also improve people's health all over in general.
Thanks. Alison, one question I had in mind is like, you know, a lot of times, like as you gave the example of trees, and I've heard that before, that some people just don't want trees in their area because you know, it's hard to maintain them, and you have to clean up
Leaves,
after
yeah.
them. Yeah. So I believe you know, climate education would probably be part. Are you thinking about educating folks on some of the work that you will be doing to mitigate, to make the city resilient? Is climate change education part of your work? Or
Oh,
are you
yes.
thinking about that?
Definitely. Educating and engaging with the community is one of my favorite things. So Resilient Wilmington just came out. She's brand new. She's just a little baby. But we've already been attending some open streets events, and we're getting together our informational pamphlets, and you guys are the cork on the champagne, and we're popping it off for our first presentation. So I imagine I am anticipating hopefully that we get to present to any of you or your communities or any of the churches. I would love to engage, and I'm really looking to kind of get into the community and hear what the actual things are happening. And, you know, I see it from a high level, but I want to hear it. I want to be able to educate and be engaged and be there to help support and make things better.
Great. I know we are over time, but I just want to take one more question from Marge. Marge, do you want to unmute and speak?
I don't remember exactly what I wrote, but it had to do with the poor response from both the city and the state to the people affected by Ida. Excuse me. And I just wondered, in this resilient plan, is there anything about response for further climate catastrophes? Because some of those people are still without homes, and it is deplorable that the response has been so awful.
I don't know, Devin, if we put anything in there that specific, but do you know? I don't think we did.
No, I don't think there's anything specifically targeting response.
Yeah, because that's more of like, that's not so much us. That's more like state of Delaware emergency, city of Wilmington emergency. Like it's an important topic that we have to touch base on. And I imagine into our plan, and we keep chugging along and getting this in the mix. When we engage with the office management and stuff like that, that's obviously going to be a topic that we're going to touch on. But for right now, I don't think we specifically touched on that. But it's a very, very important thing. And you know, we're gonna work on it for sure.
Alison, oops, sorry, Lynn.
Sorry.
Yep.
May I ask for a little more information about Ida? I'm assuming this was a storm. I don't know when it was, and was it a hurricane? Or was it some other kind of storm?
I think it was,
It was
it
a
a hurricane?
Hurricane. Mhm.
Yeah, but it happened it affected the northern part of the Brandywine River, which if it had happened here, we would have had flooding, but I don't imagine it would have been as extreme. It was kind of like a water slide effect. And it all occurred upstream and then just came down and crushed the city.
And when was that?
It was last year,
That's
right around now.
September.
Yeah.
Last September?
Mhm.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you so much for that.
Thank you. So my follow-up question was, Allison, are you looking to get some funding from the federal grants, or, with the infrastructure bill passed, or, the current IRA bill? Would that get you some funding to do the work that you're thinking of doing to building climate resiliency in Wilmington?
Yeah, we've applied for 2 grants, but I think it was with the state. Or wait, was it a federal grant?
Yeah. So we have actually received several federal grants. So the Southbridge, South Wilmington Shoreline Protection Project that we mentioned earlier, that's federally funded and is underway. And we also found out in May that we received just over we will receive just over $600,000 to study flood risk reduction alternatives for that area of the Brandywine that was impacted by Hurricane Ida. So we expect that project will have a huge impact. We don't yet have anything in the queue in terms of, federal projects for this year, but it's definitely a possibility, and it's certainly something that is on our radar. The big thing, at least from my perspective with these federal grants, is it's really competitive. And so making sure that we have projects that can compete before we throw them in the ring is a really key part of it. But yeah, certainly on our radar and a great opportunity.
Thank you so much. I guess my just last question to you, Allison, would be that, we work with a lot of faith communities and congregations in Wilmington and all over the state, and helping them become climate resilient and then educate their communities in turn. How can our congregations participate in some of your initiatives, or any other individuals can participate, and what's the best possible way to do that?
So I'm so glad you asked this, because we need volunteers for they're gonna need some actual people to come and help us get the numbers for the temperatures and stuff like that. But I also think that a really great way to get engaged is to ask me to come and present. I am required for some of my environmental permits, so I have some funding to do some outreach and additional educational specific kind of events. So I have some money that I can come and do some stormwater BMP education, and even just to engage on resiliency and stuff like that. So if you're interested in being part of this Resilient Wilmington, you can email me. On the email, I can put it in the chat, or you can email. And I'm in the mix. I'm ready. I'm ready to be here. I'm ready to get involved. I want to help. I want to hear all the things.
Thank you so much, Allison. This is great. And every climate conversation, we do a follow-up, and I will be doing a follow-up for everybody who registered and share some of the resources that you shared, and I will share your email so anybody can reach out to you. Again, thank you so much. Sorry we went a little over time, but thank you so much for everybody who could join us, and we look forward for your continuing engagement. Please get involved and help with our climate work where you can. And we are a nonprofit, so please donate when you can, and help us, help support our work. Thank you so much. Have a good evening,
Thank you so
everyone.
much. See ya.
Thank you, Allison. Bye-bye, everyone.